Have you ever sat alone late at night, feeling that faint pulse in your neck, that slow rhythmic beat that reminds you how fragile life really is, and asked yourself, what's silently clogging those arteries you've depended on for more than 6 decades? The truth is, it isn't always what you'd expect. It's not the greasy burger you had last summer at a ball game or that slice of cheesecake at your granddaughter's birthday. It's the quiet everyday foods, the ones sitting right in your kitchen right now, that slowly build a wall inside your blood vessels brick by brick. Doctors talk about cholesterol, but few speak about how these common foods act like sticky glue inside your bloodstream, narrowing the passageways that keep your heart alive. You see, after 65, your body doesn't forgive the way it used to. Metabolism slows, arteries stiffen, and what used to be harmless snacks become tiny threats wearing invisible faces. Let's start with something almost every American keeps on the breakfast table: processed breakfast meats. That sizzling strip of bacon, that pink slice of ham, or those quick-fix sausages, they look innocent, even nostalgic. But inside each bite hides sodium nitrite and saturated fat that inflame the arterial lining like sandpaper rubbing against skin. Over years, those microscopic scars collect calcium and fat, creating the perfect recipe for plaque. Many seniors say, I've eaten bacon my whole life and I'm still standing. But the body keeps score quietly, and one morning it decides enough is enough. Your chest tightens, your arm feels heavy, and that's the moment decades of casual eating cash in their debt. Now picture your arteries as narrow country roads after a snowstorm. One truck gets stuck, traffic builds up, and before long the entire lane freezes. That's what bacon does when it becomes a daily habit past 65. The second food is even more deceptive: white bread and refined carbs. It's not that piece of toast itself. It's what it represents. Processed flour stripped of fiber and packed with sugar that spikes insulin and triggers inflammation. Every spike is like a small explosion inside your blood vessels, leaving tiny scars that cholesterol rushes in to patch. That patch turns into plaque. One toast at a time, one muffin at a time, arteries harden while you think you're eating light. Americans love convenience. We built a whole culture around it: drive-thrus, quick breakfasts, grab-and-go lunches. But convenience is the silent killer of heart health. I met a retired truck driver in Dallas once, 68. Strong handshake, proud of his stamina. But his daily habit was simple white sandwich bread with every meal. When his doctor showed him the scan of his arteries, he said it looked like an old highway full of potholes. The shock on his face said it all. He thought he was safe because he didn't eat junk. The third food might surprise you even more: cheese, especially those pre-shredded or processed slices. We Americans treat cheese like a comfort hug, melted over everything from eggs to burgers, but most cheeses after processing become tiny bombs of saturated fat and salt. For people over 65, the liver processes fats slower, and arteries can't handle the constant flood of lipids. Think of cheese as the slow drip of wax inside a candle mold. It fills up space, hardens, and leaves no room for light to pass. One elderly woman in Florida told me she used to end every evening with a little, healthy snack of cheddar cubes and crackers. By 70, her cholesterol had climbed so high her doctor said her arteries looked 50 years older than she did. She quit cheese cold turkey and replaced it with avocado and a pinch of sea salt. And in 6 months, her numbers changed drastically. But here's the thing: no one tells you how emotional food becomes after 65. It's not just taste. It's memories, comfort, habits built from decades of routine. Taking bacon or cheese away feels like taking pieces of life away, and that's why the danger hides so easily. It's wrapped in nostalgia. Now let's talk about something sweeter, something that hides behind smiles: sugar-sweetened beverages. The soda that fizzes in the glass, the energy drink promising youth, the sweetened coffee creamers, all of them are quietly hardening arteries day after day. Sugar is tricky. It doesn't just add calories. It causes the liver to overproduce triglycerides, those sticky fats that float in the blood like tiny clots waiting for a chance to land. Imagine pouring syrup through a narrow straw. It coats everything on its way down. That's your arteries on sugar. Seniors often switch from soda to fruit juice thinking it's healthier. But most juices on supermarket shelves are just sugar under a fancy label. I once saw a man at a community center in Arizona pour orange juice into his morning coffee for extra vitamin C. He thought he was being clever. Instead, his daily sugar intake doubled. When you hit 65, your pancreas doesn't keep up like before. Insulin resistance creeps in, and every sugary sip speeds up arterial aging. But let's pause. There's a twist that most people ignore. Sugar and fat together, like in donuts or pastries, act like a double team. The sugar inflames, the fat sticks, and the arteries choke quietly while you feel that brief joy of sweetness. It's like smiling at a thief who's already in your house. Another quiet villain sits right on most dinner tables. Salt-heavy canned soups and frozen meals. The label says low-fat, healthy choice, even heart-friendly. But the sodium inside could power an ocean wave. When you eat that every day, your blood pressure rises like a tide, pressing against artery walls until they stretch and crack. Seniors who live alone often depend on easy microwave meals. It feels practical, safe, but what they're really swallowing is a slow erosion of their arteries. I met a retired teacher in Ohio, living alone after her husband passed, who ate canned chicken soup daily. She thought it was comfort food, simple and light. After a mild stroke, her doctor told her each can contained more sodium than 3 bags of potato chips. She cried, not from fear, but from disbelief. "Nobody told me," she said. "Nobody does." That's how these foods hide. They wear the mask of normal life. Now imagine sitting at your dinner table, thinking you're doing everything right. Grilled chicken, a bit of salad, maybe a small roll, and yet your arteries are quietly thickening because of that last little drizzle of salad dressing. Yes, that creamy bottle in your fridge door, the one labeled ranch or Italian, hides the 5th silent killer. Most bottled dressings are loaded with hydrogenated oils, trans fats, and corn syrup. Ingredients designed to last on a supermarket shelf, not inside a 65-year-old heart. Every spoonful coats your bloodstream with a film of grease that sticks to artery walls like paint on old wood. You might think, it's just dressing. But multiply that by 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, and you're basically marinating your insides. I once spoke to a retired nurse from Kentucky who told me she'd seen dozens of seniors come through her ward with clogged arteries, and all of them said the same thing. "But I don't even fry my food." They didn't have to. Their salads were doing the damage. When she switched to olive oil, lemon, and a pinch of herbs, her own blood pressure dropped like a stone. But here's the tricky part. Many seniors believe eating light means eating flavorless, so they drown their vegetables in these creamy killers. The irony is cruel. Trying to eat healthy can sometimes make things worse if you don't read the fine print. And speaking of reading labels, the 6th and maybe the most underestimated food that blocks arteries after 65 is margarine and fake spreads. Back in the 70s and 80s, margarine was marketed as the heart-healthy alternative to butter, a miracle product that would save us from cholesterol. But the truth is darker. Those hydrogenated oils inside margarine create trans fats, the kind that sneak into your cells and harden your arteries faster than any butter ever could. Picture your blood vessels like flexible garden hoses. Trans fats turn them into stiff pipes that can burst under pressure. A man in his 70s from Oregon once told me he'd eaten margarine for 30 years because doctors back then said it was good for him. When he switched back to real butter in moderation and focused on whole foods, his numbers improved, and he said, "I wish someone told me the truth sooner." That line stuck with me, because after 65, time becomes precious. You can't afford decades of misinformation. The body you live in is like a vintage car. It can still run beautifully, but it needs the right fuel. These 6 foods, bacon and processed meats, white bread, cheese, sugary drinks, salty processed meals, and fake spreads may look harmless, even friendly, but they quietly sculpt your fate one bite at a time. And here's something no one on TV commercials will admit. Your arteries don't clog overnight. It happens quietly, over breakfasts, lunches, and dinners that feel ordinary. Every bite writes a sentence in the story of your heart. When you hit 65, that story either continues or ends suddenly. Now let's make this real. Picture a 72-year-old man in his kitchen early morning. The radio plays old country tunes, sunlight cuts through the blinds, he's smiling, making his usual breakfast. Toast, butter substitute, and coffee with sugar. He's been doing it for 40 years. He feels fine, but deep inside, the walls of his arteries are narrowing, millimeter by millimeter, like dust gathering inside a pipe. He doesn't feel the blockage yet. That's the cruel part. The body doesn't scream until the damage is done. Then one day he's mowing the lawn, feels dizzy, leans on the fence and thinks it's just fatigue. Minutes later, he's on the ground. The neighbors rush over. The paramedics do their best, but by the time he reaches the hospital, his arteries, those hidden highways of life, are so clogged the doctors can't find a clear path for the blood to travel. This story repeats every single day across America, not just with men, women too. especially women over 65 who for years were told heart disease was a man's issue. It's not. In fact, after menopause, the risk skyrockets. And here's where the emotional part hits. Most of these tragedies were avoidable. Nobody told them that the so-called healthy foods they trusted were the quiet assassins. It's not fair, really. The food industry sells comfort. They sell nostalgia and convenience. They don't show you what happens inside your arteries after years of low-fat this and reduced-calorie that. If arteries could talk, they'd scream. They'd tell you they're suffocating under a layer of sludge built from good intentions and bad information. But since they can't, it's our job to listen to the warning signs. Shortness of breath, chest tightness, fatigue that won't go away. These are the whispers before the storm, and yet most seniors ignore them because they think aging naturally feels this way. It doesn't have to. Picture instead what happens when you make simple swaps. Fresh fruits instead of pastries, olive oil instead of margarine, whole grains instead of white bread. Within weeks, blood pressure improves, circulation gets better, energy comes back. One retired firefighter in Illinois told me, "I feel like I turned back the clock 10 years just by changing breakfast." That's how powerful food really is. It can kill slow or it can heal fast, but nobody can make that choice for you. Not your doctor, not your spouse, not your kids. It's yours alone. The fork in your hand deciding the rhythm of your heartbeat. And if you're over 65, that decision carries more weight than ever. The body is resilient, yes, but it's not infinite. It gives what you give it. It forgives, but only for so long. When you know the truth, it becomes impossible to ignore it. The real question is, now that you know which 6 everyday foods could be building walls inside your arteries, what will you do differently tomorrow morning when you open the fridge? Because here's the truth nobody wants to face. Heart disease doesn't begin in hospitals, it begins in kitchens, in grocery aisles, in the quiet choices made when no one's watching. It begins the moment you believe a little bit won't hurt. But a little bit, done every day for years, becomes a mountain your arteries have to climb just to keep blood flowing. When you're young, your body bounces back. It forgives. But after 65, that forgiveness fades. The arteries you've used for a lifetime start to stiffen like old rubber bands, and each bad meal pulls them tighter, and then one day they snap. The tragedy is that it doesn't have to end this way. The human body has this miraculous ability to heal when given the chance. Even arteries that are partially blocked can start to clear when you feed them right. Whole foods, greens, nuts, fish rich in omega-3s, real water instead of sugary drinks. You see, after decades of working hard, raising families, paying bills, surviving storms, the last thing you deserve is to have your life cut short by something as preventable as food. I once visited a heart rehab group in California. The oldest man there was 81. He used to eat everything from canned chili to margarine toast, but after his second heart scare, he decided he wasn't going down like that. He swapped canned for fresh, meat for beans, soda for tea. A year later, he was walking 2 miles a day. He said something I'll never forget. "I didn't quit eating. I just started respecting what I eat." That's what it's about. Respect. Respect for the body that's carried you through every year. Every heartbreak, every victory. Food isn't the enemy, but ignorance is. The more you know, the more power you hold to rewrite your story. Imagine for a moment you could see inside your arteries right now, a living map of your habits. What would it show? A clear highway with steady flow or a crowded road gasping for space? If that image makes you pause, good. It means your heart is still listening. The biggest lie society tells older adults is that it's too late to change. It's never too late. Arteries respond within weeks. Blood pressure can drop in days. Energy returns faster than you expect. I've seen seniors toss their medications aside under doctor supervision just because they decided to stop feeding their disease. It's not magic, it's science meeting self-respect. And yet every grocery store still lines its shelves with silent killers disguised in bright colors and happy slogans. You walk in thinking you're choosing for yourself, but the truth is, they've been choosing for you all along. That's why awareness is everything. The moment you start reading labels, the moment you trade instant for real, you take back control. You take back time, because that's what this is really about, time. Time to play with your grandkids, time to take that road trip, time to wake up without pills, time to feel the sunrise instead of a heartbeat monitor. People think longevity is luck. It's not. It's choices stacked like bricks, small, daily, invisible choices that build the walls of either health or regret. You can still enjoy food, still laugh at barbecues, still celebrate birthdays, You just have to stop feeding the enemy living inside your arteries. Replace bacon with smoked salmon or turkey slices. Swap the white bread for sprouted grains. Skip the soda. Have sparkling water with lemon. Use olive oil instead of bottled dressings. Taste the food, not the chemicals. It's not about giving up. It's about waking up, and every meal is a chance to start over. And if you're listening to this, sitting there with that cup of coffee, maybe thinking, I'm too old to change, and remember this. Your heart doesn't care how old you are. It only cares what you do next. I once asked a cardiologist in New York what he tells his older patients who feel hopeless. He said, your arteries are like highways. You can't always rebuild them, but you can stop the traffic jam from getting worse, and sometimes traffic even clears when you stop adding cars. That's hope. Real measurable hope. You just have to believe it enough to act on it. Maybe tonight when you open the fridge, you'll pause before grabbing that familiar comfort food. Maybe you'll reach for something fresh instead. Maybe that single choice will ripple forward, saving you from the emergency room a year from now. The power sits quietly in your hands, disguised as a fork, a knife, a grocery cart. After 65, the world tells you to slow down, but your heart is begging you to speed up, to catch up with the care it's been waiting for all along. So let this be your wake-up call, not a scare tactic, but a lifeline. The 6 everyday foods that block arteries after 65 aren't exotic or rare. They're the ones we trust most, the ones that sit closest to us day after day. They're the invisible storm that creeps in quietly until one day it roars. But storms pass. You just have to step out of the rain. So take this moment right now to decide. Will you keep feeding the storm, or will you start clearing the sky inside your own body? Because life after 65 isn't about counting days. It's about making every heartbeat count. And that starts, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now with the next bite you take.